Anh ơi, anh cho nó xem phim một tí được không? Vì em hứa với nó rồi. Thế tối hôm nay anh nhà chị đi vắng, thế là xong rồi chị hứa với nó là lúc nào mẹ bắt đầu nói chuyện với cả bạn mẹ thì là
Được
sẽ
xem
được xem
phim.
phim 15 phút. Thế bây giờ vào nghe thấy mẹ bắt đầu nói chuyện, bắt đầu vào đòi quyền lợi.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Viet Boss Babes, a Vietlish podcast for modern Viet women. Today, we'll be talking about parenting in Vietnam as well as balancing having a family and a career. So, a lot of you have questions about what is it like to raise family in Vietnam? And as women, can we balance between career, family, and friends? Can we have it all? And so let's talk about today with our guest, T. Ellen or T. Minh, who's born and raised in Hanoi, lived in France for a little bit, came back to Hanoi or Vietnam, and now running three businesses, also has a full-time job, and is a wonderful mom to two kids. Ellen, welcome to Viet Boss Babes.
Thank you, Mia. So thank you for having me and giving me the chance to talk about my struggling parenting life. And I hope when I share my experience, I can encourage other Vietnamese women who in the same situation overcome the difficulties in balancing between private life and professional life and have more confidence to pursue what they want in life. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for hopping on the call and share this experience because I know, especially with Vietnamese women, we balancing a lot. We want
Yeah.
a really good career. We also want to have families. So, especially for people who are in their 20s or early 30s thinking about all these things, it's scary and it's also like
Yeah.
a big black box. And so I'm very excited to have you on the call. Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your life path so far?
Okay, so I will give you some highlights of what I have gone through.
Mhm.
I did my study in Paris for 5 years. Then I came back to Vietnam in 2012 to reunite with my family. And also one of the reasons why I came back to Vietnam because I want to build a business, something for myself. Since then, I got married. Time flies. I gave birth to two active boys. And now I've been struggling with my business life and a month life, but I'm still happy with my choice.
So walk us back
Yeah.
to your life in Paris. What made you decide? When did you decide like life in Paris is great, but I actually want to build life in Vietnam?
Yes, part of the reason because my study in France is a professional parkour. We
Mm.
say that in France. Since the third years at the university, I had to work 50% of the time and 50% for study at the university. Until the last year of master, I have quite some experience working for corporates in France from bank to MNC. And at the end of the day, I asked myself, is this the life that I actually want? I was struggling a lot with these questions. At that time, I also had a boyfriend who wants to settle down in France for life. He doesn't want to come back to Vietnam. I discussed my big questions with him, and he told me, why you ask so much? This is like stable life, this is a beautiful life here. Why you want to come back to Vietnam and what you can do in Vietnam, something like that. So he quite a traditional man, a
Mm.
Vietnamese traditional man. And then I asked my parents to visit Paris at that time and I talked with them. My luck is my parents are very open mind and they told me that life in Paris, life in France or in Vietnam, each one have its pro and cons. Like you can't have something perfect, but deep down in your heart, what you really want, we always supportive for what you like. So thanks to them, I decided to come back to Vietnam and to start my business life, to learn to do everything from zero. I don't regret that decision because thanks to that decision, I met my husband and he's very supportive of what I'm pursuing as a businesswoman. I'm very happy with that choice. It's
Mm.
kind of unexpected, but I think it's God.
When you moved back to Vietnam, bring me back to when you first moved back the first year, right? Like you like finished
Yes.
like studying with friends, you have a whole life
Yeah.
there, you had a partner there, and then you moved back. What was the first year like?
Yeah. I think the first year is like culture shock compared to what when you came to France for the first time, and now you came back for Vietnam after 5 years
Yeah.
living overseas, and everything is totally new. Like you are a foreigner here, everything is different. I have to catch up with my friends, ask them about what's going on here, catch up with my relative and family member. Some even ask me why you came back to Vietnam.
Yeah.
People struggling to stay overseas, why you came back to Vietnam? And I have to deal with on that. And at that time, I don't have much confidence because when you came back with a diploma, it's nothing, right? You get into a real career life. There are the newbies in the labor market, so everything is new. But after some time, I feel that I belong to Vietnam because I'm very happy to catch up with my friend in a coffee shop nearby after working hour. I'm very happy to stay with my family, especially my grandparents who were growing old very fast. And I think that the trade-off for my decision. So I could overcome all the difficulty in the beginning. In the second year, everything is like you became Vietnamese again for the second
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Okay, there's like there's I guess two things I want to touch on. Culture shock in the
Yes.
workplace and culture shock in your personal life. Let's first talk about culture shock in your workplace. Did you come back and work in a Vietnamese company? What was the environment like?
Yeah. So in the beginning, I applied for investment fund,
Mhm.
which is the normal pursuit of my career path because majors in financial engineering. And then I
Mhm.
chose the startup and nothing structured. You don't have a process in the company. Everything you have to set up from zero. So
Yeah.
I get into that, and I was quite shocked because I don't understand why people can work with that level. And
Unstructured.
I realized that the added value of people who come back to Vietnam, when you work overseas, you know this is a level of professionalism that you have to in the workplace. But in Vietnam, they don't have that vision. So that the value you can bring to the company. After some time working along with people, I know that people in Vietnam are not so professional, but they have their own ways of working and they are quite supportive. And the energies of the young people in Vietnam, I feel is like higher
Mhm.
than the young people in France because in France they follow the routine. But in Vietnam, when you work with young people, you always see the fire in their eyes. They always want to try to grow to so
Mhm.
that energized me as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'd love to learn, I feel like the narrative of like, oh, you bring a lot of knowledge and experience from the West and you come back to Vietnam and contribute. Do you find that local Vietnamese, when you work with the team, are they receptive to that? Do they see you as like, oh, I am a Thai, right? Coming back and I'm gonna bring all these good things and like implement it
yeah.
into your team. How do like local Vietnamese teams perceive that? Was there tension in a way or no?
I think it depends on the people you work with. So when
Mm,
you get into the company, you have to work with the people at the same level, a bit lower than you. Like
mm,
because I was the managers of a team, and you also have to manage up the people above you. So for the people above you, sometimes you have to pay more attention to their thinking, to what they tell you, because they know what's going on in Vietnam. They know
yeah.
the local inside here. And everything you have is, you know, the framework, you know how to work professionally, but you don't know the people, you don't know the customer. So at that time, you have to find a way to combine what you have with what your boss have and
Mm,
to get the better outcome. And my luck is because the boss is quite young and very receptive. So he also
mm,
listened to my recommendation and suggestion. Job boss is very important. When you come back to Vietnam, you have to look for the right boss who can
mm.
stand and who listen to you. Yeah. and
Yeah.
who don't see you as a foreigner.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's very important.
Yes. And for the people in your team, you also have to respect them as well because they also respect you a lot when they hear that you come back from foreign country. You have a lot of diploma and you study a lot and everything about you. Like, wow. So, so they have high expectations and they really look up to you to see what you
Mm,
will do. You also have to be authentic and listen to them and encourage them to contribute to the project as much as you do. So
mhm.
everything about respect. I think if you try to see the good things in people, you can overcome everything different between you.
Yeah, I see. That's really helpful to hear. My second question is the culture shock in your personal life. So
Yeah.
you've lived abroad for 5 years and you have different friends. Your local friends probably have different cultural understanding, cultural values now in a way. Was it hard to reconnect with your friends at home? Did you build new friendships? What was that like?
Mm. Yeah. The first culture shock when I came back to Vietnam is people ask a lot of questions about your personal life.
Yeah. Are you married? How old are
Like,
you?
like
How much money you
why did you come back? Why?
Yeah.
Why? So the first thing I had to get used to, and because after 5 years living alone in a foreign country, you did everything alone, and now you come back, you have to deal with a lot of questions. Why? And sometimes you feel that they don't care that much. They just want to ask, right? So in the beginning, I was not feeling well about why they care so much about my personal life. But after some time, I came to the thinking that they ask because they care about me. So it's okay. When I receive their good thoughts, but I don't let their thought interfere with my decision or my life. So you have to learn to deal with that. And even your family member, I don't tell you about my parents because my parents are very open mind, very supportive. But my aunt, my uncle, everyone, they ask why I came back, why I do this, do that.
Yeah.
So you just
Yeah.
ignore them. The key point, you just ignore them
Mm.
and you focus on the people that are the most important in your life, which is your parents, your grandparents, your sibling, and now my husband and my sons. And something more shocking is they ask about your income, right? They
Yeah.
ask about your salary, how
Yeah.
much you earn.
Yeah,
So
it's really
funny.
funny. Sometimes it's I know it's out of love, but like sometimes as women, you're perceived as dependent on a man or your parents. I'm fully financially independent, but sometimes your relatives still ask, "So, do your parents still send you money?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, like I've been working for a few years now."
Yeah. And yes, I think it's the same problem that every OV came back and encountered some kind of awkward situation, but you get used to it when you live here. Yeah, but I think that another side of the story is when they are nosy, but still willing to give you a hand. Like for example, if you
Mm,
know that where you're heading to, okay, I know this person, I know this one can help you, something like that. So I think
yeah.
everything have two side.
Yeah, and I find that it's a very endearing things and it's very different from a lot of the Western countries. Like I live in
Yes,
Canada and I have really close group of friends who genuinely care, but there's
that's
boundaries of
right.
how much you can ask. And it's really great. But the other side of that is when I need help, it's not like a whole village coming in to help
That's
me.
right.
I have to go out and
Mhm.
seek that help for
Exactly.
myself and not just like people just like throwing help at you. So you didn't really feel like you had to adjust a lot when it comes to reconnecting with your friends and rebuilding the community when you come home, right?
Yeah, I think I'm still very Vietnamese. Like even
Mm,
I overseas for a long time because I had enough overseas. Like in the first year, in the some first year when you came to foreign country, right? You feel like everything is very exciting. So you're in the exploration phase.
yeah.
But after like 5 years living, working with people there, you feel some part of you does not belong there. So
Mm,
I came back, I truly feel that I want to reconnect with my Vietnamese roots, Vietnamese family. So everything come naturally. And yeah, I refound myself in Vietnam.
Mm.
So yeah,
And so I think that kind of weighs perfectly into one of the theme of today is parenting in Vietnam. I know like I love to
yes,
chat about your career and your like female entrepreneurship as well late in the later half of our podcast. But the first thing is I've noticed is in the OV community, there's a lot of concerns. I want to reconnect with my roots. I want to go move my family Vietnam, or like I want to go and maybe start a family in Vietnam, but there's uncertainty about income, living expenses, education, healthcare, safety. I noticed that you have a lot of practical
mm,
advice and insight. So
yeah.
let's chat about that.
Go ahead,
So
throw your questions.
yeah. So go, let me throw out a question. I'd love to learn a bit about you and your partner. How did you meet your husband? What was that conversation like when you decide to have kids and stuff?
I think about our story. My husband, when I wanted to build a business, and we
Mm,
were business partners, something like that.
mm,
And when we work along and we understand more about each other, we feel that we are quite a match because he, unlike other traditional Vietnamese husbands who want to keep their wife inside the house and support the kid purely, doesn't have a second career. My husband always support me to do the business. So that's
mm,
why I think that's why we got married. Then when we build the business together, we organize the household like a business, like a small business
mm,
with a time schedule with the role person in charge, something like that. So
mm.
very organized and very structured, and everyone has know what he has to do in this situation. So I think that part of the key to run the business and the household at the same time.
So you guys run the business together?
Yes, we have some business together and then we run the house together as
Yeah. Can you give me a high level, walk me through your week, like you and your husband? How do you divide work? And then how do you divide like a home schedule? Who pick up the kids? How do you organize that?
yes. So most of the time, I am the one who pick up the kids. So I will be in charge of connecting with the teachers,
Mm,
then what's going on the school, and follow up closely with my kids' evolutions, like how do you feel today? Do you have something
mm.
to tell me? Something like that. And then he's the one who guide the kid in some
Career.
career, yeah,
Yeah.
something like that, like the captain of the boat.
Mm,
And because he read a lot and he wiser than me, so we leave that role to dedicated to our kids' education. Like he give them tutor on some critical subject, which is helpful for their future. Vietnamese build a lot, put a lot of effort in the future of their kids. So my husband put a lot of effort too. So I am the one who nurture them, take care of them emotionally, something like that. And my husband is the one who take care of their educations, like the big guideline of their educations belong to
mhm,
him.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. I see. Running a business is chaotic and it's not
Yeah.
your traditional 9 to 5. Things
Yes.
happen. You have to
Yeah.
work overtime or work weekends. How do you have that conversation when like one person like, yeah, like I need to go to this thing, then
Yeah. So actually, how we organize is we have a Google Clan invite both of us, and I would always put him in the invitation every event that I have to attend. Out of the working hour that I need his support, I had to tell him in advance. And I tell him, okay, please pick the kid on behalf of me because I have this meeting to attend, something like that. So we
mhm,
organize everything together and give the other partner informations beforehand so he can organize his schedule as well to
mhm,
accommodate my busy schedule.
mhm,
You have to
mhm.
co-organize everything together.
Running another business at home.
That's right. Exactly
Yeah.
I think the more difficult one because the kids are not your employee, right?
Yeah,
Your employee, you tell them
they
to
are
do
your
this, but the kid doesn't follow your rule like that.
they are your boss. They tell you what to do. It sounds like it's a very scientific approach to parenting and balancing business.
Yes.
And it is honestly very modern for Vietnamese parents or any families, to be honest. Did you get additional help outside of the two of you? Because with a lot of Western parents, like with childcare policies, expenses, and stuff, it can be hard to get that extra help. Sometimes there's only two of you in a typical Western family. What about yourself? Do you find that being at home and being Vietnam make it easier or more challenging to balance between parents and career?
I think in Vietnam it's maybe easier for women to pursue a careers. So
Mm,
I can give you some practical reasons. First, in Vietnam, you are not alone. My female friends overseas have to take care of their good kids, and
yeah,
the kid finish at 3 p.m., right? So you cannot have a full-time job
yeah.
because you have to pick up the kid and during everything within the working hour. But in Vietnam, it's not like that because every school in Vietnam, they always try to accommodate with the working hour of the parents. So normally
Mm,
they have extra class until the 6 p.m. every day when the parents get off and go to pick up the kid. So everything is very convenient to have the parent focus. In Vietnam, you have your family, and if you have a good income, you can easily get a helper. Like the helper can stay with your family for some few hours just to take care of your kid, feed them, take them to bath, something like that. And when you get home, everything's clean. You don't have
mm,
to take care of your kid anymore. You just play with
mhm.
them. So you have more time to focus on yourself and to recharge. I think in Vietnam, it's more convenient for women like me to focus on work, while in overseas everything is quite expensive, and
Yeah,
you have only choice: either you work and you spend a lot for the babysitter, either you
yeah.
have to keep the job and focus on the children limited.
Yeah, that's interesting because when I went abroad, the concept of stay-at-home mom was
Yes.
new to me.
Oh,
Like growing up, my family is a matriarch. My grandma was the head of the family. My mom
yeah,
was working full time.
yeah,
I was raised with the norm. Of course, you can have both, right? You can have family, friends, and kids, and your kids will not
yes.
be neglected. So when I came to Canada, the concept of stay-at-home moms and whatever, like it's like very foreign to me.
I think it's also part of the cultural difference between the two
Hmm.
countries, because when I stay overseas, I feel like the grandparents have their own life,
Yeah.
and it's not evident for them to take care of the grandchildren.
Yeah.
But in Vietnam, the grandparents love to spend time with the grandchildren, and they consider that their ultimate mission of life.
Yeah.
So everything is very happy with that arrangement.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think
Yeah.
if you have kids in Vietnam, might be easier for mom to yeah
Yeah.
to keep her
Because it's
care
like
of the
obviously your grandparents is gonna be there, they're like obviously like that is the
yeah.
option. It's
I
the only
remember, yeah.
option.
I
Yeah.
remember when I was having my first kid, my parents and my parents-in-law, they arranged a schedule together, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday belong to my parents, and other they belong to my parents. So
Fighting for the
happy,
kid.
very, yeah, they are very supportive, and we are happy to have them because it's quite difficult, and we have to work a lot. Without
Mhm.
their help, we could not overcome that challenging time.
Okay, that's really great to hear. Literally take a village
Very easy to raise
to
the
take
children.
care of a child. Yeah, and with grandparents, they're like, obviously I'm gonna be there. What do you mean you're not gonna invite me to this parenting?
Yeah.
So I guess I'd love to also touch on some of the expenses. You don't have to share how much you spend, but like I think it'll be really helpful for like overseas Vietnamese to have information on like certain range that they're
Yes.
expecting in terms of living expense. So for example, let's start with education. How much would you say is the typical expense that a typical Vietnamese would expect to spend on one kid for schooling and so on?
So to give you some idea of the tuition fee in Hanoi, I think
Mm-hmm.
Hanoi can represent other big city in Vietnam. So in Vietnam, in the school system, you have three system, right? The first system is public school. So public school are very cheap because sponsored by the government, everything. But the quality is not so great, especially in English training. So they don't have enough English qualified teacher to give lesson to the children. So most of the people who have like a better income, they will come to the private system. So for example, my son, he's in the private system, but even in the private system, two kind of school. So the first school is like quite a hybrid, bilingual school like that. So you have to follow this education system in Vietnam, get a diploma. And at the same time, you will have some extra subject taught in English, follow some foreign country system. So for example, my son, he's follow American bilingual curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
So he will have like eight subjects taught in Vietnamese and other six subjects taught in English. And the hybrid system, and for this system, I pay about 400 US dollar per month for the tuition fee only.
Mm.
So that's the average tuition fee. The most expensive system is the totally foreign system, like British
International school.
international school, something like that. So international school, you have a big mix of foreign people and Vietnamese people with very good income, and they follow foreign curriculum. So they don't get Vietnamese diploma, they get foreign diploma, and they will come overseas pursue like higher education. So for Vietnamese people who come back to Vietnam, I think better to stay in the private system because I don't say it's the same quality because the truth is not that. But 90% of what you get in foreign country is good than the public school. And you have to spend like for one child, I think the amount, reasonable amount is 500 to 600 US dollar per child for education.
Mm. Is that for primary school or high school too?
I think from primary school, because if you go to secondary, you go to like high school, you have to pay a little higher because the
Mm.
fee, the expense for the teacher are higher. You need
Mm.
like a level teacher to teach them. So it's more expensive.
I remember because I went to public school in my primary school. I went to Chiang,
Yes,
and then
yeah,
I had friends who went to Hanoi AMS, which is the most prestigious public school
yes.
in Hanoi. It's literally called Hanoi Amsterdam School for the Gifted Kids. I'm like, oh, okay. Like,
When we at our age didn't have many options like this current time because at that time only public school you follow Hanoi Amsterdam. I study at Chu Van like the big name
mm,
in Hanoi. But now when the children come to school, we have many options and people don't focus on public system anymore because there are a lot of good school in the private system that
yes,
have higher quality.
yeah,
The problem is money, right? You have money, you
yeah.
pay expensive. Yeah.
Berlin School is like a big player now for the
Yeah,
bilingual system.
yeah.
BIS, BVIS, like there's so many British schools.
International school. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess like to share a bit about my personal experiences. I went to public schools for primary school, and then I went to Singapore International School, which is a bilingual system. And then I also got a chance to go into like more like, fully Americanized international school
Mhm.
too. And I guess from a perspective of someone who went through the systems, I would say for parents, if you want your kids to have an enriched networking community in Vietnam, then I feel I'm very biased towards bilingual system because
Mm.
then your kids grow up with Vietnamese kids, Vietnamese community, fluent in Vietnamese. Whereas I get a little glimpse of the fully American or British school systems in high school, and I found myself a little lost because my friends were international, they're from everywhere, and it's
Uh,
so beneficial for my international mindset or a global mindset. But then when I do go home now, whenever I visit home, no one's here because they left to Japan, they go to Norway, like whatever. And then I find
Okay.
myself like, do have to reconnect with my friends from like middle school, from the bilingual schools, they're Vietnamese, and a lot of their parents are here. I am close to a lot of the parents too because they saw me growing up.
Yes, I totally agree with you. I think when you choose school, it doesn't depend on how much you can afford the school tuition fee. But I think the second factor is Vietnamese, knowing Vietnamese and to be exposed to Vietnamese culture is also an advantage for children in the future because
Yeah.
like the growth momentum staying in Asia, not in the old capitalist country. In that sense, I think you should benefit from your Vietnamese root. At the same time, you
Hmm.
benefit from an advanced education system. You can speak Vietnamese, foreign language, and you have deep understanding of Vietnamese culture. You will have much more competitive advantage compared to other foreigners in Vietnam.
Yeah, so that's something for parents to think about. The next thing that I wanted to ask is healthcare, right? A lot of
Yes.
Vietnamese overseas or foreigners thinking about moving to Vietnam come from really good healthcare systems. Like in Canada, healthcare is free. In a lot of European countries, healthcare is also free and quality healthcare. So, what is the healthcare landscape like in Vietnam?
Okay, so regarding healthcare, I will speak for my experience because I also have to pay the insurance for our employees. The healthcare system in Vietnam is quite good and available. Like you in Vietnam, you have two system, right? The public system in the public hospital. The healthcare is very cheap and they pay for most everything when you go to the hospital. The only problem is there's a lot of patients and there are not so many doctors, so you have to wait a little bit. But I think the time for waiting is still shorter than the time you have to wait in the Western country. The private system is very nice, expensive, a little bit expensive. Available customer service is excellent, but the quality of doctors is not that great. So if you have like a serious disease, you better come to the public hospital. If you have
Mm.
like flu, something like that, you come to private hospital to have a quick care.
Hmm. For insurance or expenses, for example, what should we be expecting to spend on healthcare insurance or private healthcare?
So for the public insurance system, normally the employer will pay for you. So it's quite cheap. I think we pay like 1,500,000 per month per employee. For private system, you have to buy a private insurance. You pay about 3.5 million Vietnam dong per year. You can have
Hmm.
a good care in the private hospital. So the fee for insurance, the fee for healthcare here is not that expensive.
Yeah, and most of the time you cannot get instant like access to care.
That I love about the
Mm.
healthcare system in Vietnam. You don't have to wait much.
Yeah. Yeah, from my personal experience, I go home every year. It's like a whole day of just full checkup because it's just a general health checkup because I
Yes.
want to check like fully in and out. But in Canada, for example, on the news about Canadian healthcare, it's really good, but there's a shortage and a healthcare crisis. If I want to check on some things, I have to wait for 5 months or referrals. At least in Canada, it can be quite reactive. They only take you if you're like severely sick because the
Yeah.
system is overload.
Yes, I had the same problem when I was in France because when I had some problem, I want to go to the doctor, but he's not available. So I have to wait like 2 weeks to have the booking with him. And when I came here, like I already called myself, something like that.
Yeah.
So, and I think that the pain point when you have to follow the healthcare system in Western country.
Yeah. My brother, his shoulder was very injured. He's okay, but I remember he'll like go to the doctor in Montreal,
Mm.
Quebec region, and my parents like, why don't you just pretend you're a lot of pain, cry, make a scene, just so they can see it's severe
Yeah,
enough that they have to
yeah,
prioritize his
emergency
case.
case.
It's like, oh my gosh, like I like just like my shoulder's falling off or something, just so like they can prioritize. But he's just so honest. Yeah, it's a little sore, and they're like, oh, nice, we'll come back
Oh
in
my
six
God.
months.
So that's a Vietnamese mindset, you know.
Yeah, you're just really sick, like all the time.
Okay.
And let's also talk about childcare. So, like, do you have nannies? What does that childcare expense looks like? Yeah, like what should someone like a family expect to be spending on nannies or maids?
Mm. I think the fee for the nannies is quite cheap in Vietnam. So for now, we pay like $2 per hour for our
Mm-hmm.
nanny. And she's very nice. She take care of our kid from the time she pick him up at the bus station and then feed him and then take him to the park. So she does everything for our kid. So for within 3 hours. So I think the nanny fees in Vietnam is very cheap and quite accessible to everyone with a good income above the average.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I think, like, that level of care or access in Western country is, like, almost impossible because the wages are
Yeah.
very high here. It's honestly very hard to get that babysit
Mm.
care, which also contributes towards the theme of like, can women have it all, right? Like, you
Yes.
have 3 businesses, a
Mm.
full-time job, and you are providing premium care and available to your kids at the same time. What you've mentioned about getting community support, family support, accessible childcare, and education sounds like Vietnamese women can have it all:
Yeah.
career, family, personal
I think
care. What are the challenges between balancing all of those in your daily life?
I think it's also depend on personal situations. My situations does not apply to everyone, but I think the key to balance between private time life and business life, you have to organize. You have to be like timely, organize everything in the schedule. You have to build your own team. Like even my parents belong to the team to take care of my household. I have to mobilize every asset, every help that I need to, yes, to balance between my careers and my family life.
Mhm, mhm.
Try to
Today,
be perfectionist.
don't try to be perfectionist. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I think before my mistake, I always try to be perfect mom, perfect business partner, perfect businesswoman, perfect try my parents. But then I learned that I don't have to be perfect every time and always seek help when you need it.
So, thank you so much, Minh, for the conversation today. I think that your advice and insights are very practical and also very tactical information for anyone who is considering moving back to Vietnam. So, before we wrap up, I love doing a little outro in Vietnamese with my guests. So, if you are listening on Spotify, please check out our YouTube because the translation will be there. So, trước khi chúng mình kết lại cuộc trò chuyện hôm nay thì thường em sẽ nói chuyện với khách với cả khách mời về màn thảo phanh thì coi như là em sẽ đặt 3 câu hỏi trước nhoáng và chị Minh sẽ đưa ra câu trả lời không được không không được chần chừ nhé, không được lưỡng lự. Chị
Okay,
Minh sẵn sàng
I'm
chưa?
ready.
Ok, so nếu như mà phải chọn một món ăn Việt Nam để ăn đến cuối đời, chị Minh sẽ chọn món gì?
Chọn phở. Em có thể
Nào.
ăn everywhere, every time. Lúc ốm đau, lúc khỏe mạnh, buổi tối, buổi sáng, buổi trưa, lúc nào cũng được. Cho nên chị sẽ chọn phở.
Và một cuốn sách của tác giả người Việt mà chị muốn giới thiệu cho mọi người là gì ạ?
Ờ, chị chắc là chị sẽ giới thiệu cuốn Quyền lực đích thực của thầy Thích Nhất Hạnh. Tại vì là cuốn này thì rất là phù hợp cho những bạn nào mà đặc biệt là làm business giống như chị, vừa là phụ nữ vừa làm business thì trong đó có nói về cái việc là mình làm business mình có thể tạo được lợi lạc cho xã hội và cho chính bản thân mình, thì chị nghĩ là nó sẽ rất là useful cho những bạn nào mà có cùng cái career path hoặc là có cùng cái design giống như chị.
Mà các góc nhìn của thầy thì thực sự là rất là thuần Việt, thành ra là em nghĩ là những
Đúng
cái
rồi, sẽ rất là kiểu gần gũi với mình ấy.
rất là gần gũi với mình. Và câu hỏi cuối cùng là slogan trong cuộc sống của chị Minh là gì ạ?
Slogan trong cuộc sống của chị là hãy sống như là ngày mai mình phải chết, tức là muốn cái gì thì hãy làm luôn.
Và không được đợi, không nên đợi.
Đúng rồi,
Đúng
không nên
rồi.
đợi.
Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us today, Ellen, chị Minh. I know it's very late for you, in Hanoi. So before we wrap up, how can the audience support your business adventures and your entrepreneurship journey?
Oh, I think my purpose to join your podcast is just I want to share my experience, and that's all about how you can support my business. I think you can check our website, and if you need anything in Vietnam, if you want to learn more about the Vietnamese labor market, you can ask us and find us at vremote.work. And that's all.
Mhm. Awesome. I will also leave this information in the description of our episode. So thank you so much. And to the audience, if you have any feedback, support our community, please follow us on Instagram or YouTube or Spotify. Thank you so much, Ellen, for your time today.
Thank you, Ria, for interesting chat. Bye bye.
Thank